Welcome, everybody. We're at the South Florida Hospital News and Healthcare Report Leadership Report today. And we have Wayne Brackin. He's with KIDZ Medical. And we're going to not talk about KIDZ Medical. We're going to talk about a bigger issue in the city of Miami in South Florida, and that's medical tourism. Wayne, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, Charles.
So you have been around the Miami scene for healthcare for many years. We won't say how many, but for many years. And I've known Wayne for probably 20 plus years, and he's my go-to person as an expert in everything healthcare. And what we're finding, I think, in Florida right now, in South Florida especially, is the growth of kind of not a regenerated industry, which would be medical tourism. So Wayne, tell us about your vision for medical tourism in South Florida.
Yeah, thanks, Charles. It's always great to have the opportunity to talk with you and exchange ideas. Yeah, I have been thinking about this, for a long time, but most recently, the last few years, I had the honor of being on the board of the Greater Miami Convention and Visitor Bureau, which is, for lack of a more broader term, is they promote Miami and South Florida as a destination for tourism. And the way that organization works is it's a cooperative of multiple organizations, both local and national, who are in the world of hospitality, hotels, restaurants, conventions, and they do everything possible to promote this destination, both nationally, internationally, and within the state. And the thing that caught my attention, aside from the fact that they have been phenomenally successful at doing that, and creating Miami as a brand in hospitality all over the world, but the level of cooperation and the lack of competitiveness among the organizations that participate with the bureau is really remarkable. And it strikes me now that there's been an extraordinary amount of investment in both talent and technology and facilities in South Florida, and particularly in the last few years, that I think might be an opportunity for us to set our normal competitive instincts aside and work together, like the hospitality industry does, to attract patients here as a destination.
Wayne, when you say the increase in the number of places, number of services being offered in Miami, South Florida, can you give us a couple of examples of that? People can kind of understand when they kind of visualize what's.
Yeah. Let me tell you when something that certainly opened my eyes. I think all of us who've worked in South Florida in healthcare have been proud of the development and evolution of healthcare over that period of time. And many of us have worked at multiple different institutions, hospital health systems, medical groups, universities. And I think we were always a very good, but mostly community-based health system. And that has changed to a significant degree, to the point that I think is what creates the opportunity. So more specifically, some years ago, not that long ago, 6-7 years ago, when the Baptist Health started to work on the Miami Cancer Institute as a project. The genesis of that was to try to take what was a very good community hospital cancer program and try to see if it could reach the next level. there are examples of that in Florida. Um, Sylvester obviously comes to mind in South Florida. Moffett was, as far as the state goes, a destination of choice for many people. But Baptist endeavor was to try to harness all of the talent that existed, and with the advent of a number of new technologies, for example, proton therapy, and the willingness to invest in a focused facility, was the strategic plan. What was lacking to a certain degree were certain luminary physicians and certain specialties that needed to be recruited to come into the community. And as that got underway, and I was involved with trying to bring certain of those expert doctors to this community, it became obvious that there were certain things that they were looking for and needed that weren't necessarily always available. So, for example, state-of-the-art facilities, the most up-to-date technology, certain levels of research, uh, and a very strong academic affiliation, and without those pieces of the puzzle, it was difficult, if not impossible, to bring some of these types of physicians to the community. Well, that has changed very significantly over the past 5, 6, 7 years, where you've seen like I said, the investment in the Miami Cancer Institute. Sylvester has continued to grow and flourish in the community. Um, the Mount Sinai has had major investments, to the point that they've opened up the Brackin Cancer Center just in the last a few weeks. Proton therapy is available in several locations in South Florida. The medical schools have risen up. So it was in the past, it was the University of Miami, a great medical school. But now there's Florida International University. There is Florida Atlantic University. There is Nova Southeastern. So these organizations and these academic settings that exist. So you have the opportunity for that. You have the advent of new technologies. You have the academic ties back to research, and so there's an environment now and a change in, I think, the medical culture that makes this a very attractive place for some of the best physicians in the country and perhaps the world wanting to be here.
Yeah. Now, and I think that's absolutely important. When you talk about research and you're talking about medical schools, I know a lot of people, when they have that, just not, I would say, the normal illnesses or the normal situations to be able, but they like to come to places where you have a lot of different trials, because sometimes you're on that 2% scale, and normal medicine is not helping you. But Miami has really changed, I think, in the last, like you're saying, the last 5 years, where more of it, between the hospitals, academia, and research, you now participate in trials, which I think is also a drawing card for tourism, for people to come, because now you can get the best of the best. Is that not that happening in South Florida, in your opinion?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I mean, patients patients around the world. I mean, they have access to information like for good and bad.
Right.
I mean, obviously the good side is you have the opportunity to find out what's going on in a specific area of illness that you might be afflicted with. Yeah, it also unfortunately subjects you to the opportunity to be taken advantage of, because there's a lot of unfiltered information there. But on the positive side, people have access to information. They are seeking novel treatments. They are seeking, as you said, access to trials. and those trials are frequently available here, either through through Sylvester, through the Miami Cancer Institute, through some of the university affiliations, and patients are looking for that, and that they're looking for not only the best physicians or technology, but some time to enroll in a trial that could potentially save their lives.
And I think that's important because again, and again, I think, if you look back 10 years ago, maybe 10, 12 years ago, truthfully, the hospitals really had no affiliation with major cancer centers within the country or even within the state. Now the state has joined forces with a lot of local hospitals in South Florida. So now you have the ability to increase that and be able to come to Miami rather than have to go to another city.
Well, you're right, and we see it in two ways. One, there are active affiliations among what we call national medical brands and local institutions. But you also see in South Florida that many of those organizations are pursuing creating a presence for themselves in South Florida,
Right.
because it's a desirable market. And the other very interesting thing, I think, for us here in South Florida is the attractiveness of this population to research organizations is a very interesting thing. And so what I mean by that is when I was working on some potential affiliations to create access, as you said, to novel treatments and research, there was a lot of interest in South Florida. And in my conversations with some of those organizations, I was interested in why they were so readily attracted. And they said because South Florida has a unique population in the United States. It's unlike anywhere else in the country. I mean, certainly, the United States is not homogenous, but broad areas of the country are. But even if you get into, let's say, Southern California or parts of Texas, there can be a Hispanic population, which is different than, let's say, Vermont or somewhere like that. But you also have here, you have that, you have representation from really practically the entire planet living in South Florida. So those companies and those hospital healthcare organizations, they're interested in having those kinds of patients who are different enroll in these trials to see what the outcomes might be and how that might be different. So we have a unique opportunity to attract interest here that's different than other places.
Oh, absolutely, because the melting pot of Miami is like no other. You used to say that about New York, but I think Miami has a much better melting pot of people and population. That you're right, and you have representation from all over the world in Miami.
One of the hospitals that I was the CEO of one time, we were doing some demographic analysis of the workforce, and it turned out at the time that particular hospital had employees from 80 different countries, 80, which, some people aren't aware that there's 80 countries in the world, right? I mean,
right.
it's, and I myself was kind of shocked by that. We're in South Florida, so I'm thinking, okay, well, there's probably people here, certainly from Cuba or Colombia or Brazil or Argentina. Yeah, all those things are true, but 80 countries, I mean, that's extraordinary. So you're right, it's quite a different place than most places.
Where do you see over the next couple of years, that this medical tourism can be a benefit to all in healthcare. And, what role can individual hospitals, obviously, hopefully they'll be listening to this later on, but how can they play in this sandbox, which will be beneficial to everyone?
Yeah, I think that uh, I really want to go back to that convention and visitor bureau tourism model, and I'm going to try to work with these two organizations that I'm have the honor of being on the board of. One is the South Florida Hospital and Healthcare Association. The other is the Bureau, and see if we can create a bridge and look at that structure and say to the membership, listen, we have an opportunity here. We can set aside our normal competitive instincts for the greater good and really harness what we have here. People want to come to Miami. I mean, you have obviously the attraction of Central and South America and the Caribbean, which is, there's a natural affinity geographically here and culturally here. But a lot of people who have the ability to leave their home country and would be happy to be seen here, they're historically, as we talked about earlier, they may go to New York to Sloan Kettering, or they may go to the Cleveland Clinic in Ohio. They might look at Mayo. But now, as we talked about, they can access that level of care here locally. It's just that people aren't 100% aware of it because it's a little bit dispersed among many organizations. So I think if everybody can take a look at that from a broader perspective and think about, not that every hospital is the right place for every issue, every personal issue. But if you think about is if you collectively look at every hospital and all medical staffs in South Florida, there's a pretty good chance that level of care that you're seeking on a national international basis might be available. We even ourselves frequently aren't aware of who has what. I mean, most people don't know that probably the busiest robotic surgeon in GYN oncology is here in South Florida, practicing with HCA at their facilities.
Right.
There's a physician who attracts worldwide patient flow for limb lengthening that's here, and most certainly, I mean, this week that we're talking about, the World Cup is here.
Right.
The level of sports medicine expertise that's here that takes care of the Miami Dolphins, takes care of the college teams, the Miami Heat, the Marlins, the Florida Panthers. There's that sports medicine access. That whole thing about, listen, if it's good enough to take care of the quarterback of the Miami Dolphins, is probably good enough for me.
Right. Now, I think what happens, and you almost have to build when you kind of relate it to sports. You have multiple teams, whether it be, say, in baseball, whether, and they all fight to each other to basically win the World Series. But they do come together, East and West. I guess it's East and West now, or U.S. and elsewhere. But they have all-star games. And all of a sudden, all these players that are competing with each other all the time, pitchers throwing pitches at somebody else, maybe even hitting them, are now playing on the same team. And so you have to develop an all-star team of hospitals and physicians in Miami that play against the all-star team of Houston for instance.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that's the way you look at it by saying Miami in general wins because it becomes a destination. And I think, but it's a hard road. It's a hard road to get to, but not an impossible road.
Well, it's a great analogy. And when I was talking to the board at the Hospital Association recently about this subject, I said, it's going to take leadership at the top of each of these institutions, because if you go back and you ask your individual hospital marketing department their opinion, and you go back and ask if you have an international division, that's their territory and that's their turf, and they have a tendency to want to protect that. I mean, you hire them and pay them to bring patients to your institution, and they're competing with everybody else. So you have to have some leadership at the top to say, look, we're going to set that aside for now, because we think over time that we'll have a much larger audience to appeal to. And I like I said, I think that's what it's going to take.
Well, and you're right, because if you can make the concept of a local person being an international person, I think, because as a local person in Miami, when you have to go see a doctor or go to a hospital, you have choices, and you make those choices for certain reasons. Well, somebody coming here will make those same choices for certain reasons. They just need to know they need to come here.
Right.
And that's the whole point. And I think people do get caught up in, hospitals. I know a lot of them they'll have offices down in the Caribbean or in South America or elsewhere. I mean, Cleveland Clinic has, as you know, affiliation hospitals in Dubai, So, you bring them in, but the key to it is it's really Miami medicine rather than individual. Let them make the decision on where they want to go when they get here, but it's truly just getting it into Miami medicine. And it's tough. It is. It's a tough change. You're right, because it's a little bit of a change to the business model.
Yeah. And again, it's not, you had mentioned earlier, there are some examples, like in the medical city in Houston. I mean,
Right.
there are examples of places that have been able to successfully create an image outside of the country that it's a destination for expert care. And we through this process, and what I hope is going to happen here, we'll be educating each other, because honestly, people tend to get within the four walls of their institution. They think about the physicians that they're familiar with and the ones that they have good experiences with, and they may have no idea that there might be somebody in a subspecialty that they don't have available. And I'll give you one, personal example. I had a family member who was having memory care issues, right? And so I had sat on the board of the medical school at George Washington University. So I had access to some people there that I was talking to about my family member's issue, and they referred me over to Johns Hopkins. So we went there, and the woman who was the director of that program was fantastic, and certainly happy to see my family member, but asked me afterwards, why was I coming all the way up to Hopkins when we lived in Miami? And I said, well, because we, understand that this is, the best place to have the best opportunity to have some effective treatment. And she said, well, there's a physician in Miami who is one of the top 2 or 3 in the country with memory care and Alzheimer's and that type of treatment. And I didn't know that he existed, because I was always in my own silo about it. And again, sometimes until you have a problem, you don't really have a need to know. But it turned out that obviously that was vastly more convenient to be able to access this physician here in Miami, who, by the way, his name was Dr. Marco Gronin at Miami Jewish, and he, you know, he's fantastic. And little did I know that that level of expertise here. And so I think that, as I said, we can educate ourselves about the array of expertise that might exist here.
No, and again, I think the competitiveness and knowledge are important, and you know, you're not competing against each other, you're competing against other cities.
Right.
And I think, and cities within the United States and cities outside the United States. And if you don't look at it that way, you're never really going to make a difference in the market. And your leadership in this thing is going to be great because you truly understand it. And
well, I look at but I look at these reports about what's going on in tourism and hospitality, every 2 or 3 months. And just like you said, when they show how Miami's doing, they're comparing themselves to New York, San Francisco, Chicago, Hawaii. That's the competition. The competition
right.
is not each other, and the competition is not even really Florida. It's that big wide world out there.
Right. It is. Well, with this, we're going to continue this conversation as we go on. So I want you to kind of tune in with us over the next few months, and about monthly, if we can get Wayne, I know has a very, very busy schedule, to be able to continue this conversation and see where we go with another conversation in about a month. Wayne, if people want to know more about getting involved after watching this, can you give me your information to get how they can get a hold of you?
Yes, very simple. It's wayne.brackin@kidzmedical.com, which is KIDZ medical.com. And I'd be happy to talk to anybody about these ideas and hear what their thoughts are, because it's not as you said, it's not a simple matter. There's things to overcome, but we're also not reinventing the wheel. And we have the benefit of our product, meaning the physicians, the facilities, the hospitals, the technology, the universities, and the research. It's now all here.
Right.
So
absolutely,
we just have to harness it.
No, absolutely. And like I said, if you want to get a hold of Wayne, that's great. You can get a hold of me. You should be able to find out where it is, where I am, and my phone numbers plus my email address. And Wayne, I really appreciate the time and look forward to our conversation, our monthly conversation now, once we get that schedule set up. So tune in next month and we'll have another update with Wayne Brackin. And thank you for tuning in and seeing us today.